The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They sat in their great chamber at the center of the galaxy, 17 powerful races who believed they knew everything worth knowing. They had watched empires rise and fall. They had counted more than 40,000 intelligent species across the cosmos. They believed themselves to be the masters of all creation. When humans first made contact 30 years ago, the Council barely noticed them. A young species, they said, from a small yellow star in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy. Their technology was primitive. Their bodies were weak and fragile. They lived such short lives that it seemed almost pointless to speak with them. By the time you finished a conversation, the human might already be old. The Council gave humanity a classification of Tier 7. This was almost the lowest possible rank. It meant humans were barely considered intelligent at all. They were access to trade routes. They were technology. They were any real voice in galactic affairs. And then the Council forgot about them entirely. High Arbiter was the leader of the Galactic Council. He was a creature, ancient beyond measure, with a hard shell that had turned dark with age and compound eyes that had witnessed the rise of civilizations. He sat on his elevated throne and looked down at the assembled representatives with the calm certainty of a being who had never been truly surprised. Today was the Centennial Military Review. Once every 100 years, the elder races gathered to display their greatest warships. It was a show of strength, a reminder of power, and a celebration of their technological might. The Empire went first. They were the greatest military power in the known galaxy, and they knew it. Their admiral, a tall creature with silver scales and cold yellow eyes, stood proudly as his flagship entered the display zone. The ship was magnificent, 2 kilometers long, covered in weapon batteries, with engines that could push it faster than most species thought possible. It was called the Eternal Flame, and it had destroyed more than 300 enemy vessels in its long service. The council members made sounds of approval. The admiral bowed slightly, accepting their praise as his due. One by one, the other elder races presented their own vessels. Each was impressive. Each represented the peak of their civilization's engineering. The smallest was half a kilometer long. The largest, besides the flagship, stretched to nearly 1.5 kilometers. Ambassador Han watched from the lower gallery, where lesser species were permitted to observe. She was a small woman with black hair turning gray at the temples and eyes that missed nothing. For 15 years, she had represented Earth to this council. For 15 years, she had been ignored, dismissed, and treated like a child at an adult gathering. She did not look like someone who was about to change the galaxy. When the presentations were complete, High Arbiter raised one of his many limbs for silence. The Council recognizes the military excellence of all participating races, he said, his voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. This display reminds us of the strength that maintains galactic order. Stood up. The movement was small, but in a chamber full of beings who had learned to ignore humans, it drew attention. Several representatives turned to look at her with expressions ranging from confusion to irritation. The representative from Earth wishes to speak, asked. There was amusement in his voice. A Tier 7 species speaking at the military review was like a child interrupting a meeting of generals. The United Earth government formally requests permission to present our vessel for the Council's review, said. Her voice was clear and steady. For a moment there was silence. Then the laughter began. It started with the Admiral, a sharp barking sound that echoed through the chamber. Others joined in. The delegates, small furry creatures who rarely agreed with anyone, laughed so hard they nearly fell from their seats. Even the normally stoic allowed themselves a rumbling chuckle. Waited. High Arbiter did not laugh. He was too old for such displays, but there was something in his compound eyes that might have been amusement. Ambassador Han, he said, The military review is for vessels of significance. Tier 7 species do not possess vessels of significance. Your largest ship, according to our records, is a transport vessel approximately 200 meters long. This is not a display for shuttles. More laughter. Smiled. It was a small smile, patient and calm, and something about it made a few of the laughing delegates fall silent. High Arbiter, she said, we were not asking for permission. We were offering you a courtesy, a chance to prepare yourselves for what you are about to see. The laughter stopped completely now. The chamber fell into an uncomfortable silence. Explain yourself, said. His voice had lost its amusement. 30 years ago, you classified humanity as Tier 7. You told us we were primitive, insignificant, not worthy of your attention or your technology. His voice remained calm, almost conversational. You assumed we would accept this judgment, that we would wait quietly for centuries, hopping to slowly climb your classification system. She paused, looking around the chamber at the 17 elder races who had dismissed her people for 3 decades. You did not understand humanity. At that moment, every sensor in the council station began screaming. Turned to his advisors, his calm finally cracking. What is happening? Something is emerging from fold space, one of them reported, his voice shaking. At the edge of the system, the energy readings are. There must be an error, the sensors must be malfunctioning. Show me. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. Every being present turned to look at it. Space itself seemed to be tearing open. Not the small, precise rupture of a normal fold space transition, but a wound in reality stretching across 50 kilometers. Energy poured from the tier, so much energy that 3 monitoring stations overloaded and went dark. And then something began to emerge. At first it was just a shape, dark metal against the darkness of space, but it kept coming and coming. The shape grew larger on the display, and still more of it continued to emerge from the fold space rupture. Hand stood perfectly still, her small smile never wavering. High Arbiter, she said, the United Earth Navy would like to present the Titan-class warship Eternal Horizon for your consideration. No one responded. No one moved. Every being in the chamber stared at the display as the massive vessel continued its emergence. The admiral, who had laughed the loudest, dropped his ceremonial staff. It clattered to the floor, but he did not seem to notice. The ship kept coming. Minutes passed. The vessel continued to emerge. It seemed impossible that anything could be so large. High Arbiter's mandibles had frozen mid-motion. His compound eyes could see the sensor data scrolling across his private display. The numbers did not make sense. They could not make sense. No species could build something of this size. No species would even try. And yet there it was. 17 minutes after it began, the Eternal Horizon finally completed its emergence from fold space. It hung in the darkness of space, silent and vast, making the flagship look like a small boat beside a mountain. The Galactic Council, rulers of the known universe, masters of 12,000 years of history, could neither move nor speak. They could only stare at what humanity had built in secret, while the rest of the galaxy had been laughing at them. The Eternal Horizon was 47 kilometers long. This number appeared on every display screen in the council chamber. The sensors checked themselves again and again, running diagnostic after diagnostic, but the number did not change. 47 kilometers of dark metal and impossible engineering, hanging in space like a sleeping giant. The flagship, the pride of the galaxy's greatest military power, was 2 kilometers long. It had seemed enormous just minutes ago. Now it looked like a toy beside the human vessel. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Eternal Horizon, watching the sensor data stream across her screens. She was a woman of 52 years, with gray streaks in her black hair and the calm eyes of someone who had seen too much to be surprised by anything anymore. "Captain," she said, "status report." Captain checked his displays. He was younger than the Admiral, with broad shoulders and a face that smiled easily, though he was not smiling now. "All systems functioning normally, Admiral. Fold space transition was rougher than expected, but we sustained no damage. The crew is at stations throughout the ship." "Crew count?" 180,000 personnel, all accounted for. "Nodded. 180,000 people aboard a single vessel, more than the entire population of many alien cities. This was what humanity had achieved in secret." "Open a channel to the Council station," she said. Lieutenant Bay worked at the communications console. She was young, barely 30, but she had been chosen for this mission because she never panicked. "Channel open, Admiral." Straightened her uniform and faced the camera. "This is Admiral Park of the United Earth Navy. We apologize for the delay in our arrival. We experienced some difficulty calibrating our fold space drives for a vessel of this size." She paused, allowing herself a small smile. "We are still working out the details. This is, after all, our first Titan-class ship." On the Council station, every screen displayed her face. The 17 elder races stared at her, still unable to find words. Ambassador Hand spoke into the silence. "The United Earth Navy formally presents the Titan-class warship Eternal Horizon for the Council's military review." High Arbiter finally found his voice. It came out as barely more than a whisper. This is not possible." And yet said, "Here it is." The Admiral stumbled forward, his scales pale with shock. "The sensors must be wrong. No species can build a vessel of this size. The resources required would equal the resources of dismantling several small moons," finished for him. "Yes, we are aware of the requirements. We met them." "How?" The word burst from like a cry of pain. "Your species has only been spacefaring for 87 years. Your population is barely 12 billion. How could you possibly construct something that we, with our thousands of years of advancement, have never even attempted?" Looked up at the display of the Eternal Horizon, and her expression softened with something like pride. "Because you never told us it was impossible. You simply told us we were not good enough. Those are very different things." On the bridge of the Eternal Horizon, Captain walked to the observation window. The Council station was visible in the distance, a small point of light that housed the rulers of the galaxy. Around it, the warships of the elder races floated in formation, each one impressive by any normal measure. But they were not normal anymore, not after today. "Sir," Lieutenant said, "we are receiving hundreds of scan requests from the elder race vessels. They are trying to analyze our ship." Turned to Admiral, "Should we block them?" Considered this for a moment. "No, let them scan. Let them see exactly what we have built. They will not believe it otherwise." Across the fleet, alien sensors probed the Eternal Horizon. They mapped its hull, counted its weapon batteries, measured its energy output. And with each new piece of data, the disbelief grew deeper. The ship carried 12,000 weapon batteries along its surface. Not 1,200, 12,000. Any one of them could have matched the main gun of a standard cruiser. Together, they represented more firepower than the entire war fleet. But the weapons were not the most frightening part. Deep within the ship, the sensors detected something else. Power cores that burned with the energy of stars. Manufacturing facilities that could produce new fighters and ammunition endlessly. Crew quarters and training facilities and medical bays, and everything needed to keep 180,000 people alive and fighting for years without resupply. The Eternal Horizon was not just a warship. It was a mobile military base, a flying city, a weapon that could operate indefinitely, traveling across the galaxy with no need for ports or supply lines. High Arbiter's intelligence chief, a nervous creature named, brought the scan results to his master with trembling appendages. "High Arbiter," he said, The vessel matches Ambassador Hand's claims. It is indeed 47 kilometers in length. Its power output exceeds the combined output of our entire defense grid. Its armor is made of materials we cannot identify. And its weapons, he trailed off, unable to continue. What about its weapons? Demanded. The primary armament appears to be some kind of stellar focusing array. As best we can determine, it is capable of channeling and directing energy from nearby stars. Was silent for a long moment. You are telling me this ship can use stars as weapons? We believe so, High Arbiter, though we cannot be certain without seeing it in action. Paused. I pray we never see it in action. In the council chamber, the representatives of the elder races had begun to recover their ability to speak. But they did not speak to each other. They spoke to their home worlds, their voices carrying across the vast distances of space through faster-than-light communication. The contacted their military command, the called their governing council, the spoke with their elders. All of them said the same thing: the humans have built something impossible. Everything we believed about them was wrong. And still the eternal horizon hung in space, silent and patient, waiting for the galaxy to understand what it was seeing. Admiral Park watched the chaos unfold from her bridge. She had known this would be shocking. She had prepared herself for the reaction, but even she felt a small twist of satisfaction at the sight of the mighty elder races scrambling like frightened children. Admiral, Lieutenant said, Ambassador Han is requesting to speak with you privately. Nodded, put her through to my ready room. She walked to the small office behind the bridge and closed the door. A moment later, his face appeared on the screen. For the first time since the display began, she looked tired. It is done, said. They have seen it. How are they taking it? Laughed, but there was no humor in it. They are terrified, Admiral, absolutely terrified. In 30 minutes, you have destroyed everything they believed about the universe. That was the point. I know I helped plan it, paused, but now comes the hard part. We have shown them our strength. Now we must show them we are not their enemies. That will be much more difficult. Nodded slowly. The council will want explanations. They will want to know how we did this, why we did this, what we intend to do with it. They will want to know if we are planning to conquer the galaxy, said. They will look at our ship and see only a threat. We must make them see something else. What should they see? Smiled, and some of her weariness seemed to fade. They should see what humanity truly is, not conquerors, not destroyers, just a species that refused to accept being told we were not good enough, a species that will move mountains to prove that we deserve respect. Admiral Park looked out the window of her ready room at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, 12 billion humans waited to learn if their 30-year sacrifice had been worth it. Then we will show them, she said. We will show them exactly who we are. For 3 hours, no one in the Galactic Council spoke a single word. They sat in their elevated seats, the 17 elder races who had ruled the stars since before humanity learned to make fire, and they stared at their display screens. The data had not changed. The sensors had confirmed themselves hundreds of times. The numbers were real. 47 kilometers, 12,000 weapons, 180,000 crew, materials unknown to galactic science, power output that exceeded anything ever recorded. The eternal horizon hung in space like a god that had decided to visit mortals. High Arbiter sat motionless on his throne. His compound eyes had not blinked in over an hour. His advisors brought him reports, analyses, and calculations, but he did not respond to any of them. He simply stared at the image of the human vessel on his private display. Finally he spoke. His voice was dry and cracked like stone breaking. Bring me everything we have on the humans. His intelligence chief hurried to comply. Moments later, data flooded the High Arbiter's screen. Population statistics, technology assessments, cultural analyses, military reports. All of it was 30 years old. All of it was wrong. We recorded them as having 43 vessels total, said slowly. The largest was a transport ship, 212 meters long. We noted that they showed promise in miniaturization technology, but lacked the resources for large-scale construction. Yes, High Arbiter confirmed. We assigned them 3 surveillance probes. 3, the minimum possible for a Tier 7 species, and those probes have reported nothing unusual in 30 years. The probes are functioning normally, High Arbiter. Their reports show standard human space activity, trade vessels, mining operations, small military patrols. Was quiet for a moment, then where did they build this? Had no answer. On the Council Station's observation deck, Ambassador Han sat alone. Through the vast windows, she could see the eternal horizon in the distance. Even from here, even reduced to a speck of light against the darkness, she knew exactly what she was looking at. 30 years. 30 years of planning, building, sacrificing. 30 years of being laughed at by every species in the galaxy. And now, at last, the galaxy had to take humanity seriously. She heard footsteps behind her and turned. A delegate approached, one of the small furry creatures who had laughed the loudest in the council chamber. His name was something unpronounceable to human tongues, but she had learned to call him. Ambassador Han, he said. His voice was quiet, nothing like the mocking tone he had used just hours ago. May I sit? Gestured to the seat beside her. Of course, delegate. He sat, his small body barely reaching the edge of the chair designed for larger species. For a moment, he said nothing, just stared out at the distant light of the human vessel. I owe you an apology, he finally said. Raised an eyebrow. Oh. I laughed at you. For years I laughed at your species. I told myself that you were primitives, that you would never amount to anything, that giving you attention would be a waste of time. He paused. I was wrong. You were not alone in that view, said carefully. No, but that does not excuse it. Turned to look at her directly. His eyes were wide and something in them might have been fear. How did you do it? How did you build something like that without anyone knowing? Was quiet for a moment, considering how much to say. Do you want the simple answer or the complicated one? Both. The simple answer is that you were not watching us closely enough. You gave us Tier 7 status and forgot we existed. 3 surveillance probes for an entire solar system, and all 3 pointed at Earth itself. You never thought to look at the asteroid belts, the outer planets, the dark places between worlds where humans have learned to build in secret. And the complicated answer. Turned back to the window. The complicated answer is that you never understood what we are. You looked at our short and saw weakness. You looked at our fragile bodies and saw primitives. You looked at our history of wars and conflicts and saw chaos. What should we have seen? You should have seen a species that has survived everything. Ice ages that covered half our planet, plagues that killed 1 in 3 of us, wars that burned cities to ash, disasters that should have ended us 100 times over. His voice grew harder. You should have seen a species that never gives up, that never accepts being told it cannot do something, that will tear apart its own world rather than admit defeat. Was silent for a long moment. That is terrifying. Yes, agreed. It should be. We terrify ourselves sometimes, but you had nothing to fear from us. We never wanted to fight the council. We only wanted to be treated as equals. And now, smiled, but there was steel in it. Now you will treat us as equals whether you want to or not. Deep in the eternal horizon, Captain walked through the endless corridors of the ship. Even after months of service aboard, the scale of the vessel still amazed him. He could walk for hours and not cover the same ground twice. He passed engineering sections where fusion reactors hummed with controlled power. He passed crew quarters where off-duty personnel tried to rest despite the tension of the moment. He passed training facilities, medical bays, manufacturing centers, and hundreds of other sections that made the ship a world unto itself. Finally, he reached his destination, the historical archive on deck 117. The archive was a small room compared to the rest of the ship, but it contained something precious. The walls were lined with displays showing images from Earth's history, wars and disasters, triumphs and tragedies, the long, bloody, glorious story of human civilization. Lieutenant Bay was already there, standing before a display showing the first moon landing. "I thought I might find you here," said. Turned, her eyes were red as if she had been crying. "Captain, I apologize, I should be at my station." "Your shift ended an hour ago. You are allowed to rest." He walked to stand beside her, looking at the image of humans taking their first steps on another world. "Why here?" "I needed to remember why we built this ship," said quietly. "We spent 30 years hiding, sacrificing, keeping secrets from each other and from our families. My own mother died without knowing what I was working on. I could not tell her." Nodded slowly. He understood. His own family had suffered the same separation. 12 million people had worked on the Titan project, and all of them had paid a price. "Do you think it was worth it?" asked. Considered the question carefully. "I think we will not know for many years whether it was worth it. Today, we showed the galaxy that humanity cannot be ignored. Tomorrow, we must show them that humanity can be trusted. That is the harder task." The Admiral seems confident. The Admiral is confident because she has been preparing for this moment for 20 years. But even she knows that building the ship was the easy part. What comes next will be much more difficult. Looked back at the moon landing image. "My grandmother used to tell me about that day. She was a child when it happened. She said the whole world stopped to watch. Every country, every language, every people. For one moment, all of humanity was united in wonder. And you hope today will be the same." "I hope today will be the beginning of something new, not just for humanity but for everyone." She paused. "Is that naive?" Smiled. "Perhaps. But the best things humans have ever done started with someone being naive enough to try." Back in the council chamber, High Arbiter finally rose from his throne. The movement drew every eye in the room. For 3 hours, the Ancient had sat frozen. Now, slowly, he descended from his elevated seat and walked to the center of the chamber floor. "Contact the human vessel," he said. His voice was tired but clear. "Invite Admiral Park to address the council in person. It is time we heard what humanity has to say." Hurried to comply. Minutes later, the invitation was sent. On the eternal horizon, Admiral Park received the message. She read it twice, then set down her data pad. "Well," she said to the empty room, "let us go explain ourselves." She straightened her uniform, checked her reflection, and headed for the shuttle bay. The galaxy was waiting to hear from humanity. It was time to tell them who they truly were. Admiral Park's shuttle crossed the empty space between the eternal horizon and the council station in perfect silence. She sat alone in the passenger compartment, reviewing her notes for the 100th time. She had practiced this speech for 5 years. Every word had been chosen carefully. Every pause had been planned. But now that the moment was here, the words seemed small and insufficient for what needed to be said. The shuttle docked, the airlock cycled, and stepped onto the council station for the first time in her life. Ambassador Han and Captain were waiting for her. They fell into step beside her as she walked toward the council chamber. "How are they?" asked quietly. "Scared," replied. "Some are angry, a few are curious, but mostly they are scared." "Good, fear is useful. Fear can be changed into respect. It is hatred we must avoid." They reached the great doors of the council chamber. 2 guards, massive warriors who towered over the humans, stepped aside without a word. Their eyes followed as she passed, and she saw something in their expressions that she had never seen before. Uncertainty. The council chamber was vast. designed to intimidate visitors with its enormous scale. The 17 elder races sat in their elevated positions, looking down at the speaking floor where lesser species were permitted to address them. Walked to the center of that floor and stood still. High Arbiter spoke first. His voice echoed through the chamber, amplified by hidden speakers. Admiral Park, the Galactic Council has invited you to explain yourself, to explain your vessel, to explain humanity. I understand, said, and I thank the Council for the opportunity to speak. We do not want thanks, we want answers. The Admiral leaned forward, his scales catching the light. That ship of yours could destroy our entire fleet. We want to know if you intend to use it. Met his gaze without flinching. May I tell you a story first? A murmur passed through the chamber. This was not what they expected. Tell your story, said, but do not waste our time. Nodded. 30 years ago, I was a young officer in the Earth Navy. We had just made first contact with the Council. For the first time in our history, we knew we were not alone in the universe. We were excited, hopeful. We believed we would be welcomed into a community of advanced civilizations. She paused, letting the silence stretch. Instead, you classified us as Tier 7. You told us we were primitive. You closed your trade routes to us. You us technology that could have advanced our civilization. And then you forgot we existed. That was standard procedure for newly contacted species. One of the delegates protested. I understand that now. At the time, we did not. At the time, we saw only that the galaxy considered us worthless, that everything we had achieved as a species meant nothing to you. His voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath it. Do you know what we decided to do about that? No one answered. We decided to prove you wrong. She began to pace slowly, her footsteps echoing in the silent chamber. On the day we received our Tier 7 classification, Earth's governments held a secret meeting. Every major nation participated. Every leader agreed. We would not accept being dismissed. We would not wait centuries to climb your classification system. We would build something so magnificent that the galaxy would have to take us seriously. Project Titan was born that day. She stopped packing and faced the Council directly. For 30 years, humanity devoted 40% of its total economic output to a single goal. We hollowed out asteroids in the outer reaches of our system. We constructed shipyards in places your surveillance never thought to look. We developed new technologies that your scientists told us were impossible. 40%, the elder rumbled in disbelief. No civilization can sustain that level of military spending. Your economy would collapse. You are correct, it almost did, twice, but we did not stop. Eyes swept across the assembled elder races. Do you want to know why? Do you want to know what drove us to sacrifice so much? Tell us, said quietly. Because you laughed at us. The words hung in the air like a blade. Every species that encounters the galaxy learns its place in the order of things. The strong rule, the weak serve, and those at the bottom, the Tier 7 species, are ignored completely. We were supposed to accept this, to know our place, to spend centuries proving ourselves worthy of attention. Shook her head slowly. But you do not understand humanity. You cannot understand humanity unless you know where we came from. Earth is what your scientists call a death world. Our planet tried to kill us from the moment we evolved. Ice ages that covered half the surface. Predators that could tear us apart. Diseases that wiped out entire populations. We survived all of it. We did not just survive, we thrived. We conquered our world and then we reached for the stars. And when we reached the stars, we found you. Advanced civilizations with thousands of years of history. Technologies beyond anything we had imagined. We thought you would welcome us. Instead, you told us we were worthless. Her voice grew harder. You made a mistake that day. You looked at our fragile bodies and short and saw weakness. You did not see the truth. The truth is that humans are not weak. We are stubborn. We are relentless. We are a species that will move mountains to prove a point. And for 30 years, we moved mountains. 12 million people worked on Project Titan. 12 million people kept the secret. For 30 years, not one of them talked. Not to family, not to friends, not to anyone. Do you understand what that means? 12 million humans for 3 decades united in a single purpose. That is humanity. That is what you dismissed as primitive. The chamber was utterly silent. The eternal horizon is not our only Titan-class vessel, continued. There are 6 more under construction. Within 10 years, we will have a fleet that could challenge any power in the galaxy. Fear flickered across dozens of alien faces. But we do not want to challenge anyone. We never wanted to fight you. We only wanted to be seen, to be respected, to be treated as equals instead of insects beneath your notice. She stopped and looked directly at High Arbiter. That is why we are here today. Not to threaten, not to demand, simply to ask one final time that humanity be given its rightful place among the civilizations of this galaxy, not as Tier 7 primitives, not as lesser beings, as equals. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then slowly, High Arbiter rose from his throne. "Admiral Park," he said, and his voice had changed. The condescension was gone. The amusement was gone. What remained was something that might have been respect. "You have given us much to consider. Will you consider it? We have no choice." The ancient looked toward the viewport, where the distant shape of the eternal horizon was barely visible. "You have changed the galaxy today. Whether we wished it or not, the old order is gone. Now we must decide what comes next." Bowed her head slightly. "That is all we ask." She turned and walked from the chamber, captain and ambassador falling into step beside her. Behind them, the 17 elder races began to speak among themselves in urgent whispers. The galaxy would never be the same, but allowed herself a small smile as she walked. Whatever came next, humanity had finally been heard. And that was worth 30 years of sacrifice. 3 days passed before the Galactic Council reached its decision. During those 3 days, the eternal horizon remained in position at the edge of the system. It did not move. It did not threaten. It simply existed, a constant reminder of what humanity had accomplished while the galaxy was not watching. Admiral Park spent most of that time in her quarters, reading reports from Earth. The news had spread. 12 billion humans now knew that their decades of sacrifice had succeeded. The celebrations had been immediate and overwhelming. But did not celebrate, not yet. She knew that the hardest part was still to come. On the morning of the 3rd day, a message arrived from the council station. The vote had concluded. The 17 elder races had reached a decision. Dressed in her formal uniform, the one reserved for moments of true significance, she checked her reflection in the mirror and saw a tired woman with gray hair and calm eyes. This was the face that would represent humanity today. Captain met her at the shuttle bay. He was dressed formally as well, and his usual easy smile was gone. "Whatever happens," he said, "we have already won. They cannot unsee what they have seen. They cannot unknown what they know." Nodded, "But we can still make things worse, or better. Today determines which." The shuttle crossed the void once more. The council station grew larger in the viewport until it filled the entire view. The docking bay was different this time. Guards lined the walls, but they were honor guards, not security. Their weapons were ceremonial. Their postures were respectful. Ambassador was waiting at the airlock. Her expression gave nothing away, but there was something in her eyes that might have been hope. "They want all 3 of us to appear together," she said. "Human leadership presenting a united front." "Do you know how they voted?" asked. "No, they kept it secret until the announcement, but the mood has changed. 3 days ago they were terrified, today they seem thoughtful." They walked together through the corridors of the council station. Everywhere they passed, Alien beings stopped and stared, not with contempt anymore, not with dismissal, with something closer to curiosity. The great doors of the council chamber opened. Inside, the 17 elder races sat in their elevated positions, but something was different. The seats had been rearranged. No longer were the lesser species forced to stand on the floor below. New seats had been added at the same level as the elder races. One of those seats was empty. It was positioned directly across from High Arbiter himself. His breath caught, eyes widened. Even, who had trained herself to show no reaction, felt her heart skip. High Arbiter rose from his throne. He was old, so old that his shell had turned almost black with age, but his voice was strong as it echoed through the chamber. Admiral Park, Ambassador Han, Captain, representatives of humanity, please approach. They walked together across the chamber floor. Every eye in the room followed them. When they reached the center, they stopped and waited. Looked down at them. His compound eyes revealed nothing. The Galactic Council has deliberated for 3 days, he said. We have reviewed the evidence presented by humanity. We have consulted with our scientists, our military leaders, and our historians. We have debated and argued and considered every option. He paused. And we have concluded that the council itself was wrong. A ripple of reaction passed through the chamber. Several of the elder race representatives shifted in their seats. The admiral's scales flickered with color. For 12,000 years, continued, we have classified species based on their apparent development at the time of first contact. We assumed that this initial assessment would predict their future potential. We believed that the order we had established was natural and permanent. Humanity has proven that belief to be false. In 87 years of spacefaring, you have achieved what we thought was impossible, not through luck, not through stolen technology, through sheer determination and collective will. You have shown us that our classifications were not measures of potential. They were measures of our own failure to see what was possible. Descended from his throne. Slowly, carefully, the ancient walked down the steps until he stood on the same level as the humans. It was an act without precedent in council history. The tier classification system is hereby abolished, he announced. From this moment forward, no species will be ranked above another based on our assumptions of their worth. All species will be granted equal standing before this council. Felt's hand gripped her arm. She heard sharp intake of breath. Furthermore, continued, the council has voted to invite humanity to join us, not as a member, not as a junior partner, as a founding partner in a new galactic order. He gestured toward the empty seat across the chamber. That seat was constructed last night. It is yours. From this day forward, humanity will have an equal voice in shaping the future of our galaxy. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Admiral Park stepped forward. Her voice was steady, but those who knew her could hear the emotion beneath it. On behalf of humanity, I accept. The chamber erupted in sound. Delegates rose from their seats. Some applauded. Others simply stared in disbelief. The Admiral crossed the chamber and offered his hand in the human fashion, a gesture he must have researched. I mocked your species, he said quietly. I was a fool. Took his hand. You will not be the last to make that mistake, but perhaps you will be the last to make it about us. Hours later, after the ceremonies and speeches and endless conversations, found herself alone on the observation deck of the council station. The eternal horizon was visible through the viewport, a dark shape against the stars. Captain found her there. He carried 2 cups of coffee, a small piece of home in this alien place. We did it, he said, offering her one. We did. She took the cup but did not drink, though I keep waiting for something to go wrong. That is the human experience. We spend so long preparing for disaster that we forget to enjoy victory. Smiled slightly. 30 years, 12 million people, 40% of our economy, and in the end it was a single ship and a single speech. It was more than that, said. It was 12 million people who kept a secret for 30 years. It was a species that refused to accept being told they were worthless. It was humanity being human. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the stars. What happens now? Asked. Now we have to prove that we deserve what we have won. We have shown them our strength. Now we must show them our wisdom. Paused. That will be harder. Probably, but if anyone can do it, it is humanity. Why do you say that? Smiled his easy smile. Because we are too stubborn to fail. Tell us something is impossible and we will bankrupt ourselves proving you wrong. Tell us we do not deserve something and we will work ourselves to death earning it. That is who we are. Ambassador joined them. Her eyes were red from crying, but her smile was genuine. Earth is celebrating, she said. Every city, every nation. They are dancing in the streets. 30 years of sacrifice and finally they can celebrate. Nodded slowly, they have earned it. And you, Admiral, will you celebrate? Looked out at the eternal horizon, the impossible ship that had changed everything. She thought of the 12 million who had built it, the billions who had sacrificed for it, the children who had grown up never knowing why their parents were always working. Perhaps, she said, but first I need to send a message home to all the people who made this possible, to tell them that their sacrifice mattered, that their work was not in vain, that humanity finally has its place among the stars. She turned from the window and walked toward the communications center. Behind her, Captain raised his coffee cup in a quiet toast. To humanity, he said softly, the most stubborn species in the galaxy. Far away, aboard the eternal horizon, 180,000 crew members watched the news from the council chamber. They had been part of something impossible. They had changed the course of galactic history. And somewhere in the depths of human space, construction continued on Titans 2 through 7. Because humanity had learned long ago that respect, once earned, must be maintained. The galaxy had finally seen what humans could do when they were united. It remained to be seen what they would do next. But whatever it was, the universe would never forget the day the Titan appeared.